Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 19. Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Girivaradhari Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Yashodanandana Braja Janaranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Vishnupada Paramahamsa Paribrajakacha Stotara Sata Shri Srimad A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda Ki Jai Namacharya Srila Haridas Thakur Ki Jai Pramsika Ho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Ki Jai Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopa Gopinatha Shama Kunda Radha Kunda Giri Govardhan Ki Jai Shri Vrindavan Mathura Dham Ki Jai Navadip Mayapur Dham Ki Jai Ganga Mai Ki Jai Jamuna Mai Ki Jai Bhakti Devi Ki Jai Tulsi Devi Ki Jai Samaveta Bhakta Vrinda Ki Jai. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. All glories to the assembled devotees. Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 19. Ye enam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hitam ubhoto na vijanito nayam hanti nahanyate yaenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hantum ubhotu na vijanito nayam hanti nahanyate yenam veti hantaram yaschainam manyate hatam ubhoto na vijanito nayam hanti nahanyate, ya enam veti hantaram, yaschainam manyate hatam, ubhoto na vijanito, nayam hanti nahanyate. Ya anyone, enam this, veti knows, hantaram the killer, ya anyone, cha also, enam this, manyate thinks, hatam killed, ubho both this, hanti kills, na no, hanyate be killed. Translation: he who thinks that the living entity is the slayer and that he is slain does not understand. One who is in knowledge knows that the self slays not, nor is slain. Purport of Srila Prabhupada. When an embodied living entity is hurt by fatal weapons, it is to be known that the living entity within the body is not killed. The spirit soul is so small that it is impossible to kill him by any material weapon, as is evident from the previous verses. Nor is the living entity killable because of his spiritual constitution. What is killed, or is supposed to be killed, is the body only. This, however, does not at all encourage killing of the body. The Vedic injunction is Mahimsyat sarvabhutani, never commit violence to anyone. Nor does understanding that a living entity is not killed encourage animal slaughter. Killing the body of anyone without authority is abominable and punishable by the law of the state as well as by the law of the Lord. Arjuna, however, being engaged in killing for the principles of religion and not whimsically. So Krishna continues to explain the nature of the soul, and this is the most critical part of understanding who we are, what we are doing here, what is the purpose of our life, and it is a critical part in beginning the process of becoming free from the bondage of birth, old age, disease, and death. Jamma, mrityu, jara, vyadi, dukkha, dosha, anudarshanam. That Jamma, taking birth and dying and getting old and getting diseased, are called doshas. These are things nobody wants. Taking birth is a very painful process. You have to be in the womb of your mother for many months, and then taking birth itself is a very dangerous procedure. Many babies die at birth, and it is not a pleasant way to enter into the material world. And then, even after taking birth and working our lives to be happy, whatever achievement we make, even if we make achievements which are profitable, even if we become happy in the material world, even if we have success in our endeavors, success in our career, even if we have wealth, beauty, family, reputation, all these things will be finished at the moment of death. And before death, old age and disease will gradually cut us down. And the more we become successful materially, the more painful will be the transition to old age and death. And this situation is accepted by 99% of the world population today as unchangeable, as something you cannot do anything about. But the Bhagavad Gita begs to differ. You can do something about it. There is instruction on how to become free from these four things: birth, old age, disease, and death. There is a platform where we can be eternal, happy, and full of knowledge. This is called Sat Chit Ananda. We are Sat Chit Ananda Vigraha. Our real nature is to be eternal, not to die, because nobody wants to die. That indicates, if I don't want to die, if I am so much desiring to live on, not to annihilate myself, that predicates there is a platform upon which we don't die, and that is called Sat. And Chit. Chit means we want to know more and more. We want to know why we're here. We want to know what is our relationship with the universe. We want to know everything about everything. We don't want to be in ignorance, and that is called Chit. And when you have eternity and knowledge, then that is the platform for Ananda, or happiness. The happiness in this material world is like a drop of water in the desert. You cannot say there is no water in the desert. There is water in the desert, but very little water. Actually, the desert requires oceans of water, but only a drop is available. It's the same way we require oceans of happiness. We can never get enough happiness. We struggle in every way to become happy, not only in the human form. All forms of life strive to be happy. For example, I had some plants growing in my room, and the plants grow towards the light automatically, gradually, imperceptibly. Even plant life, the trees and the plants, they look for happiness. Animals look for happiness. They respond. That's why people keep pets, dogs and cats and so on, because they respond to a happy relationship. So we are looking for this happiness, but it is not to be found in the material world. Don't waste your time. I wasted almost 30 years of my life trying to find happiness here, but I could not find it. And I did a lot of research, and I struggled very hard. I traveled throughout this planet trying to find happiness. I entered and exited in so many relationships, but I was never fully happy because I wasn't addressing the real source of my happiness, which is me as a spirit soul. I was trying to be happy by making the body happy, but it didn't satisfy. It's like trying to be happy by making your dress nice. Yes, you can follow the latest fashion. You can buy Gucci, you can buy Dior, you can buy all the latest fashionable clothes, the latest shoes, hats, dresses, whatever you want, down to your damn underwear. But that will not make you automatically happy. Briefly, you may be happy, yes. I was watching a TV documentary about a place in Africa where people are living in poverty, in the slums. But somehow there is a group of people, they save every penny they can to buy designer clothes, the latest suits and ties and cufflinks and shoes and shirts, and they simply exhibit themselves. They're trying to be happy in the dress, but no matter how hard you try, you cannot be happy in the dress. You have to address your nature as a spirit soul, and that is explained in the Bhagavad Gita. That is called in Sanskrit dharma. Dharma is often translated in the dictionary as religion, but religion doesn't explain the real meaning of dharma. Religion is a belief. I believe in Jesus, I believe in Muhammad, I believe in Shankaracharya, in Buddha, but this belief can be changed. Dharma means what you cannot change, what is your real nature. You cannot change your nature as a servant. We are all servants. Either we serve our senses, or we serve our family, or our nation, or our neighbors. We can serve the whole universe, but service is what we do. This is our intrinsic nature. And when we serve, we become satisfied. Now, this intrinsic nature of service cannot be changed. It is just like sugar and salt. They look the same. But when you taste it, sugar is sweet and salt is salty. They may look the same, but they're not the same. You cannot make salt into sugar and sugar into salt, because the nature of sugar is to be sweet and the nature of salt is to be salty. So the nature of the living entity is that he's a servant. So I am a servant, and what am I serving? If you actually examine the situation, I'm serving my senses. I'm serving the body and the extensions of the body, my friend, my wife, my husband, my children, my community, my nation, my environment, the whole damn universe. You can serve and serve. But this service is temporary, because if we serve on the material platform, we will never be fully satisfied. Because, as I said, the drop of happiness is like the drop of water in the ocean, in the desert. We require a whole ocean of water. It's one thing putting some water on your head. It's another thing diving into the ocean. It's a completely different experience. We're required to dive into the ocean of happiness. And this is called Sanatan Dharma. That service, not to the temporary, but to the Sanatan, to the eternal. So, the Bhagavatam and the Gita explain that the nature of the living entity is to eternally serve the Supreme Lord. Serve He who has created our environment. It is not such a crazy proposition. It's not such a bad idea. It makes sense. It is intellectually and philosophically sound that we are within an environment, and this environment is not created by us. We are born with nothing. We live with nothing. Whatever we accumulate becomes lost in the eternity of time. So who has created this? Who is the proprietor of these facilities that I find myself born into? That is God. And when we serve God, we actually begin our progress towards happiness. Therefore, Bhagavatam says, Savai pumsam parodharmo yato bhaktir adokshaje. What is the paramadharma? Savai pumsam, of the living entity, of the human being, of the living entity, of the soul. Parodharma, what is the topmost dharma? Yato bhaktir adokshaje. Devotional service, bhakti, to the Supreme Lord. Ahaituki apratiyata yenatma suprasidasi. This service, when it is done ahaituki, without any motive, and when it is done uninterruptedly, yenatma suprasidasi, completely satisfies the soul. So this is the process, and it is called Sanatan Dharma. And in Bhagavad Gita, Krishna also says, you have so many duties, but give them all up and surrender to me. Sarva dharmam parijyaja mam ekam sharanam braja. This is the dharma for the particular time in which we are living. We are living in such a difficult time, spiritually speaking, that it is not practical to make slow advancement according to the Vedic system. It is not practical to hold sacrifices, or to worship gorgeously in a temple, or to practice yoga, or to go to the forest. There is no infrastructure for spiritual life. In my own life, I've seen the little infrastructure there was for spirituality in my childhood. The churches and cathedrals of Europe, they've all been closed down. Nobody goes to church anymore, hardly. And even when you align yourself with some religion, with some temporary belief, you may believe in Jesus, but that belief is only becomes useful when you use that belief to serve God. The result of having a guide like Jesus or Muhammad or even Krishna, the result of this belief is that you engage in that service, that you become a servant of God. When you become a servant of God, You see that everything belongs to him. Nothing is separate from him. You do not take advantage of anything. You are able to actually live as a spirit soul because you're not committing any sinful activities. You're not falling down onto the bodily platform. You don't see your husband as someone who you can enjoy. You don't see your wife as someone you can enjoy. You see your husband, you see your wife as a spirit soul. You see your children as spirit souls. You cooperate with your partner to make advancement in spiritual life. He helps you and she helps you, and this is the process by which we can bind together in the material world. But the purpose must be to serve God. You see your children, you educate them in spiritual life. Therefore, Prabhupada often talks about prayers and shreyas. Children, they like prayer. Prayer means something which gives me pleasure now, never mind the future. What is that? Children like to play. They don't like to go to school. Srila Prabhupada tells a funny story that when he was a child, he didn't like to go to school. His mother had to hire a person to tie him up with a rope and drag him to school every day. So, children, they like to play, and that is called prayer. But the parents, they know that my child cannot spend his life simply playing. He has to be educated, because when he gets older, if he's not educated, he will not be able to have a successful life. So this education is called Shreya. So prayer means that which is immediately beneficial, like Arjuna. Arjuna was in a prayer consciousness. He didn't want to fight. He didn't want to kill his family members. He didn't want to upset his social standing. And he was thinking that if I fight, I will suffer. But actually, when he understood that he was a servant of God, a servant of Krishna, then he was thinking, it's not a question of whether I'm suffering or not, or whether I am pleased or not. It is a question of whether God is pleased. It is a question of whether Krishna is pleased. This is Dharma. And this Dharma, the service to God, begins by hearing and chanting. Prabhupada said that he was able to speak so nicely on Dharma, on religion, because he heard nicely. So the first step is called Shravanam. Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, Archanam, Vandanam, Dasyam, Atmanivedanam. Sakyam, Atmanivedanam. These are the Nana Vida Bhakti, the 9 processes of Bhakti. It begins by hearing. And the example of hearing is Maharaj Parikshit, who is the main subject and character in the Srimad Bhagavatam. One of the main characters. He is sitting on the bank of the Ganges. He has 7 days to live, and he's hearing from his teacher, Shrukadeva Goswami, about the process of religion. What to do, how to act, what kind of mentality to have at the moment of death. Because at the moment of death, that decides, what decides where we go after death depends on our consciousness. So, Parikshit became perfect by hearing. And Sukadeva Goswami, who spoke the Bhagavatam, became perfect by speaking. Shravanam Kirtanam. Smaranam means remembering. The personification of remembering is the devotee Prahlad Maharaj. He was persecuted by his father, Hiranyakashipu, but he never stopped to remember Krishna. He was tried to be killed, they tried to poison him in so many ways, they tried to break his devotion to God, but he always remembered the Supreme Lord. So Shravanam, Kirtanam, Vishnu, Smaranam, Padasevanam, serving the lotus feet of the Lord, that is done by Lakshmi. Lakshmi is eternally engaged in serving the lotus feet of the Lord. That is her main activity. Archanam, offering puja in the temple, offering worship to the deity. That is exemplified by Prithu Maharaj. This also you can read in the Srimad Bhagavatam. Vandanam, offering prayers. This is done by Akrura, the uncle of Krishna. He was very expert at offering prayers. When he took Krishna and Balaram to Mathura, when they took bath in the Jamuna along the way, he took bath and he offered very beautiful prayers to Krishna. Dasyam. Dasyam is being the servant of the Lord. That is exemplified by Hanuman, who was the perfect servant of Lord Rama. Even today, Hanuman is worshipped everywhere in India because of his wonderful service to the Lord. So Dasyam. Shakyam, friendship, that is Arjuna. Arjuna was the perfect friend of Krishna. And Atmanivedanam, or complete surrender. This is exemplified by Bali Maharaj. Bali Maharaj was the grandson of Prahlad. Prahlad Maharaj's son was Virochana, and Virochana's son was Bali. And Bali belonged to the Asura class who were fighting against Asuras, the demons against the devotees. Suras, the devotees who accept the superiority and the lordship of God, and Asuras, or the non-devotees, they don't accept God, they're atheists. But even among the Asuras, there are devotees sometimes, because deep inside, everyone is an eternal servant of God. Sura or Asura, it doesn't matter. You may be a devotee or not, you may be pious or not pious, this is an external thing. If Krishna wants, he can make anybody his pure devotee, even if he comes from a demonic family. And indeed, when Bali Maharaj was performing a great sacrifice, the demigods begged Krishna to please come and please defeat Bali Maharaj, who had occupied all their planets. So the Lord agreed, and he took his birth as the younger brother of Indra. His name was Upendra. Also, but he took birth as a small boy, a small dwarf, Vamana. Vamana means dwarf. But even though he was a small dwarf, he was so beautiful that when he entered into the sacrificial arena of Bali Maharaj, it was like the sun rising, millions of sun rising. It was so effulgent. Everybody stood up and offered respect. And Bali Maharaj became enchanted by the beauty of Vamanadev. He was completely enchanted. He had not seen anything so beautiful. You could not imagine something so beautiful would be there. So he bowed down and he said, "My dear sir, you have come dressed as a brahmachari, as a brahmana, and I wish to give you in charity. Please tell me what you want." So at that time, the guru of Bali Maharaj was on the Shukracharya. He was the Jat Guru, the family guru. He said, "Don't give him anything. This is not a regular brahmachari coming to beg. This is the Supreme Lord Vishnu. Don't trust him. He will take everything you have." That's why Vishnu, Krishna, is known as Hari, means thief. He will take away all your material attachments. He will take away all that you have stolen from him. So Bali Maharaj was very intelligent, and he said to his guru, "But you taught me in the Vedas that we should give everything to God. Now you're telling me that I shouldn't give him anything. So I reject you. I don't accept your advice." So he said to Vamanadev, "My dear boy, what do you want?" And Vamanadev said, "I want 3 steps of land." Why 3 steps? Because 1, 2, 3, 3 steps is the length of land required to lie down on. That's all he needed. He said, "All I need is 3 steps of land where I can lie down." And Bali said, "Why such a small request? I own all the planetary systems. I defeated all the demigods. Everything belongs to me. I can give you the whole universe. I can give you so much more." But the brahmachari Vamana said, "No, 3 steps are enough." Very well. So then Vamanadev began to expand his body, and he took 1 step, and that step became so great, his body expanded so much, it reached the top of the universe and actually cracked a hole in the covering of the universe, and from that hole, one drop of water came from the Karana ocean, the ocean of creation, and that drop of water is still flowing as Mother Ganges. Then he took the second step and he covered the second half of the universe downwards. Then he said to Bali Maharaj, my dear king, I have taken only 2 steps, but I have taken everything you own. I have taken all your planetary systems up and down, but I still have 1 step. What to do? Where should I put it? So Bali became very intelligent and he bowed down, his heart having been melted by the beauty of Amandev. He bowed down and said, my dear Lord, put your step on my head. And that is called Atmanivedanam, or full surrender. So let us meditate upon this. Let us take advantage of this wonderful opportunity that we can make spiritual progress in one go, simply by surrendering, simply by chanting Hare Krishna, and simply by giving our life to Krishna. Krishna will give us full protection. No need to go step by step. Thank you very much. So, we have many guests tonight. Atma Kamaraslinga, also known as Atma Vidya Prabhu. Hare Krishna, good evening to everyone. Anna Maria, Hare Krishna, obeisances to all the devotees. Das Prabhav, very devotional, thank you very much. Anders, Dandavat Pranam. Mandi Prior, Hare Krishna. Glenn, very nice preaching. As you heard from our Acharya Srila Prabhupada, Jaya. And that's a fact. There's not a day goes by. I made a vow that every day I should read something from Prabhupada's books. And every day I listen to some of his lectures. If I'm able to say anything, it's because of my hearing from Prabhupada. Albert de Vos connected. Atma Kamara Stinger, please. I love you, lucid speaking. Very clear for everyone. Makes me realize that understanding Krishna consciousness, even though it is the highest philosophy, is also a question of plain common sense. Exactly. It is absolutely common sense. By birth, by my astrological chart, I am a Virgo, Leo Virgo, I'm on the cusp, but I have a very prominent Virgo nature. I like everything in its place. I like everything logical. And I had a big problem with my religion of my youth because it didn't make sense. Many of the questions I asked, I remember being a schoolboy, and in our school, the first 45 minutes in the morning for the Catholic boys was catechism, and a priest used to come to teach us the catechism. So this priest one day says, if you die with a mortal sin in your soul, you go to hell forever. So I put my hand up. I said, God is our Father. Yes, yes. And God loves us. Yes, he does. Then how can he send me to hell forever? Okay, maybe for 100 years, 1,000 years, he may punish me. But sooner or later, the punishment must be over. He cannot send me to hell forever. I couldn't accept that. So I had a big fight. I got kicked out. Another time, the priest said that unless you're baptized, you go to hell. Up went my hand. But what about the people in India? They don't get baptized. Millions of people. What about the people in Africa or China? They don't get baptized. Again, he kicked me out of the class. So very simple questions and very unsatisfying answers. And when I began to read the Bhagavad Gita, and Prabhupada's illumination of the Bhagavad Gita, Prabhupada's purpose, are like a bright light that shines and brings out the luster, the beauty of the Bhagavad Gita. When I began to read the Bhagavad Gita and the Nectar of Devotion and the Srimad Bhagavatam, then all the questions I had became answered. Everything made sense. And of course it has to make sense because truth has to be sensible. Reality has to make sense. And you will not find that sense anywhere except in Krishna consciousness. That is the highest sense-making process that you can engage in. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. See you next Wednesday. Oh, there's two more comments. Vrishnivamsa says that Bali gave freely to Vamanadev 3 steps to lie down against the advice of his guru. Guru Aparad? Yes, but he was a bogus guru. He was Shukra Acharya. Acharya based on seminal succession by family. That kind of guru is not a bona fide Acharya. Even if you make an offense, it is not an offense if it is done for the pleasure of Krishna, for reawakening and re-strengthening our relationship with God, and not following some family guru who only wants you to reinforce your relationship with matter. Shukracharya's problem was that if my disciple accepts Vishnu, then I'm out of a job. So Anna Maria comments that according to the Bhagavad Gita 17:25, Lord Krishna said, one should perform various kinds of sacrifice, penance, and charity with the word tat. How do you differentiate between sacrifice and penance? Would you please give me an example of penance? Thanks. Penance means anything which you do which is meant to awaken your original relationship with God. For example, we have 4 kinds of penances in the practice of Bhakti Yoga. No meat eating, no illicit sex, no gambling, and no intoxication. Now, my stomach says, go and buy a pizza. But if I decide no, rather than buying a pizza, I will cook something at home and offer it to Krishna and then eat it as prasad. That is penance. To control something lower for something higher. Now, I'm not familiar with 1725, but I'll look it up and give you an answer later also. So penance means to follow the principles which will take you towards reality, no matter how many obstacles there may be. The obstacle may be your mind, your senses, your family, your environment, but to overcome this obstacle for the purpose of understanding my spiritual nature and my relationship with God, that is called real penance. Thank you very much. Hari Bol.